Over and over, honey love, it's the truth.
From the Sunshine State, this is Tampa Bay Tan Talk.
All right. Good evening, everybody. This is Lou Angelwolf. Welcome to the imho.love show. And here we are broadcasting in sparkling downtown Clearwater at the, there we go. There's my volume. As our opening band, the Scorpions. And here we go, folks. In the studio with me immediately to my left, my partner, my radio buddy dude guy. It's Michael Murburg.
And the CE5 practitioner.
Yes.
Yeah, we were in the field last weekend.
CE5 practitioner. That's a great That's a great way to describe it. Yes, we had a beautiful sky watch last weekend, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And it's our producer over to the right, Kathy McGuire.
Hello.
Kathy, I'm sorry I forgot to give you a howdy last week. Yeah, I know you were traveling on business, but we missed you.
Well, thank you. I missed you guys too.
All right. Well, here we are, folks, back on the air. It's we're on the Tan Talk Radio Network. That's tantalk1340.com. We got all kinds of AMs. We got all kinds of FMs, and you can search for it there. But the show is constantly archived every week on YouTube at imho.love. That's YouTube, imho.love. And you can catch all, this is what, number 68? I think we're doing. This is show number 68, I believe.
Yeah, well, like us, subscribe, and share.
Do all those things. You can like, subscribe, and share. And, of course, there's all kinds of places to find the show. We're all over the place. And if you can't find us, you ain't looking too hard. Well, anyway, we got a great show lined up for you. Earlier this year, Michael and I went out to the UFO MegaCon in Laughlin, Nevada, and saw a very interesting group of speakers. And one of the guys that we met out there, I got along with him instantly. He's just a really nice, pliable fellow. He is an expert on crop circles, those amazing crop circles that you see. And he also does resonant viewing or remote viewing. And we got started on that topic last week with Kat Carroll. And so all this kind of parlayed into our guest this week. Ladies and gentlemen, he's an author and a physician. This is welcome to the imho.love show, Dr. Simeon Hein.
Well, hey guys, how you doing tonight?
How you doing, man? Good. I feel like I know you because I've been watching your videos, and and they're really kind of amazing stuff. Last week we started our mutual friend Kat Carroll. She was talking about remote viewing or resonant viewing, and then your name came up after the show, and so we got in touch, and you were so gracious to be on the air with us, and thank you for that. And
thank you.
So, where are you right now? Where are you at geographically?
I'm in the New York City area.
Okay.
I was escaping the Colorado snowstorm, but actually I'm out here to celebrate Thanksgiving with my family.
Ah, how nice! And thank you for thank you for making time with us for us. Now,
thank you for having me here.
Yeah. Now, last Friday night, you were on the TV show In Search Of. Okay.
Yeah.
And I was really excited to find that out. I texted 30 of my friends, left them messages. Hey, you got to watch this guy. He's going to be on our show next week. And it went on 8:00 out west, but it was on 10:00 here. And it was at the end of like a 14-hour day for me. I made it. I made it to your part. I saw where you were out in the fields and you had your detector there. And then you went to break. I fell asleep at the break.
So we want to know what happened after that.
Guys, I have that effect on people. So.
Actually, I saw your lecture, and I thought you were very lively and animated. And what you did there at MegaCon was wonderful. Everybody out there that you lectured to actually got it, and people are actually having results, which surprised me because I have a problem doing this. I'm really not great at it, but we're going to give you the floor. Tell us what happened there, what we missed, and then start talking about what you do, what you teach, and how we can learn how to do it and how to get in contact with you.
So you're talking about what happened out at Laughlin at the conference with the remote viewing experiment we did?
We'll cover that. But on the In Search Of show, okay.
Oh, On Search Of, okay, we're going between. Yeah, I do study all these topics, guys, because I really think that they're related.
Mm-hmm.
Just for starters, perhaps you're interested in what I do because a lot of people see these so-called paranormal phenomena as separate sorts of subjects, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got UFOs, you got your remote viewing, your crop circles, your ghosts, your precognition, and pre-sentience, and all these good things, clairvoyance, Bigfoot. I see these all as part and parcel of a bigger topic. It's just the way I look at it. I'm not saying you have to look at it this way. I see it as part of being in a multiverse, which means that we're in one reality, but there are other realities in the same space as we are at different frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time we don't perceive those. We just perceive sort of the one we're on physically because that's how our physical senses are tuned to perceive things. It's kind of physical stuff that has survival value. So most of the time we're not perceiving parallel realities, except when we're dreaming perhaps at night or feeling like we've had contact with someone, a loved one who's deceased recently, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I see those all as a type of bleed through from parallel realities. And physics is increasingly looking at this for real with experiments that are being done right now, even at places like Oak Ridge National Laboratory, a government lab, to look for evidence of parallel realities. So that's just the way I look at it. And this is why I see these topics as being connected. And this is why I study things as diverse as remote viewing, what I call resonant viewing, and crop circles, right?
Right.
And UFO experiences. I see them as interrelated phenomena that all have to do with reality, sometimes bleeding through to each other, blending together, and things popping in and out that don't really fit any linear description of time that you and I were brought up with.
Right.
So this is why these topics are, for me, are connected. And what you saw in the In Search Of show was my interest in crop circles.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I got interested after taking remote viewing.
Okay.
Because we had done an RV session on a crop circle in '96. And I was, at the time working with Courtney Brown at the Farsight Institute in Atlanta. And this is where I learned this. And I didn't know what a crop circle was. He kind of gave us these more esoteric targets. You start out like you saw in Laughlin with these kind of basic verifiable targets. And the target we did in Laughlin, by the way, I think it was a Buddhist temple or something like this. And a lot of people drew it.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot
of people got it.
I got real close. I drew the Eiffel Tower. So.
Right. So you got something that was tall, just like the appearance of that stupa in that Buddhist temple. Exactly. And a lot of people got it, just like you did. So you start with targets like that you can verify pretty easily by looking at the photo. And it's also fun to look at targets that you can't really verify to explore maybe what's going on there. Because if you can do it with a Buddhist temple, well, maybe you could find out what makes crop circles or what they're doing, stuff like that.
Sure.
And so remote viewers get attracted to some of these esoteric targets. And that's how I got involved with crop circles. I didn't know what they were at the time in '96. So I actually went over there and on someone's crop circle tour, a guy named Ron Russell who lives in the Denver area. I saw him at a local UFO conference and he was giving these tours. I thought, great, I'll find out what this is really all about. Because when I had done my RV session, I couldn't really make heads or tails of the results. I was getting like strange energies, something related to extraterrestrial, strange shapes, but I didn't know what that meant. So I thought I'd go there. So the long and the short of it, guys, was shortly after going over there, I did encounter people who said they had strange experiences in crop circles in terms of it affecting their equipment. cameras, batteries, watches, compasses would start spinning around. And that was the beginning of my search for what is going on with crop circles, that these shapes appear to affect our electronic equipment and even just magnetic measuring equipment like a compass, something as basic as a compass. And that's how I ended up using all these measuring devices that you saw on the show In Search Of.
Yeah, what was
That's
that?
what they wanted to see.
What was that thing you had that initially you were getting some kind of a positive reading?
Static, electrostatic.
Okay.
That is a lab grade piece of static equipment that I believe was made by a company in Medina, New York. I don't know if they're still around, but in the 90s, they made these electrostatic testing equipment. And so we would go into crop circles, many of them, and see, do we find changes in the electrostatic charge versus outside in the field? Is that what could be going on? Are they generating static charge, or is there more static charge? So that was one of the instruments you saw me using. And the short answer is yes, we found that the static fields in the crop circle were much stronger than outside the crop circle in many of these formations.
Okay.
And so we thought maybe that has something to do with the batteries and cameras failing, because I've seen it many times. I put the videos, by the way, Lou, you said you watch my YouTube channel. I have about 5 or 6 of these incidents up on my YouTube channel of people walking into a crop circle and having their camera stop working almost immediately.
I saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's there's a bunch of them, and I have it under my kind of weird crop circle experiences playlist.
Now,
yeah, it's just amazing how the different consciousness modalities all tie into the kind of like the center of the axle. They're all different spokes that all relate to the same place, and it's interesting that you're tied into so many of them, because I think you're absolutely right that they all tie in, and the question is they do, but the question is how. And the question I have for you right now is the electromagnetic charges. Do you think they were just residue in the area that were a consequence of the phenomenon, or do you think they actually were used and engaged to create the phenomenon itself?
Well, that's a really good question, and that's how we originally approached it. And by the way, people that want to look at these videos for themselves, they can just go to my YouTube channel, just search for Simeon Hein on YouTube, and you'll find my YouTube channel. That's the question. Initially, we thought maybe it's a residue of something that created the formation, and that it's sort of a leftover energy, because sometimes the static charge would be quite strong. And we thought, is that static charge enough to blow out batteries and so forth? But after a while, we decided to make our own crop circles. We would go and pay the farmer and use their field to make a couple to see if we could generate the same charge, right?
Okay.
And we did with the ones that we made too. So we realized, well, we're just doing this with a mechanical method. We're not using a ball of light or sound frequencies like you saw demonstrated in the In Search Of show last week.
Right.
Yeah, that was pretty cool with the cymatics and all that. And something that's always interested me is the crop circles look a lot like cymatic patterns. These kind of very symmetrical, even patterns you get from generating sound onto a plate of metal with sand on it. Yeah.
It was very interesting when you were talking about the metallicity of the wheat itself.
Yeah. Metallicity. Did you pick up that word there?
I love that.
That's a good one.
I love that word, metallicity. Man,
did I actually say that on the show? I can't remember.
Oh, yeah.
That's what the word I used. Metallicity. That's cool. I like that. It's like heavy metal. I mean, that is exactly right. I'm really glad you picked that up, because that was pretty subtle. Because I saw the show and I didn't hear that, but I've said that, so I must have said it on there. Yes, the metallicity is that insulating materials under some circumstances can act like conductors and become metal.
Right.
That's my feeling of what's going on in the crop circles, to cut to the chase. And we found that those effects were created in the ones that we made too.
Okay, so you were
realized it wasn't a residue. It was being generated by the circle after it was made.
Okay, so you were
Yeah.
like crushing the wheat down with like boards and ropes, that kind of
Yeah.
thing? Okay.
Right.
All
yeah,
right.
and we weren't trying to fool people. We would put up signs that we were doing an experiment, stuff like that. We weren't trying to fool anybody. We would pay the farmer. We'd let everyone know, hey, we're doing an experiment here. This is a science experiment.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the other type that you see out there. This is us with boards
Okay.
attempting to create. We got this idea from two German researchers, Koch and Kyborg.
Okay.
Koch and Kyborg. Kyborg, I believe, is now deceased as of a couple of years ago, but they would go out and make them and say, hey, we're making a man-made circle. We're attempting to answer the intelligence with our own shape. I mean, if it is a language of communication, the shape,
Sure.
maybe you could communicate back to this intelligence with your own shapes. I know there's some people that see that as like sacrilegious, like you're going out there and you're muddying the waters. But hey, humans are good at communication, right? It's
Right.
one thing we're really good at. It's like many other animals on the planet. Why not communicate through shapes?
Mhm.
So we would, Koch and Kyborg were very open about doing this. They'd create these simple shapes. Now, this is the thing. We measured Koch and Kyborg formations, and we didn't find any static charge in there initially. So we thought maybe the man-made one wouldn't create the static charge. But once we made a few of our own and we observed some other people making them for advertisements and so forth, we did see that same static charge. So that was one of the instruments we used. You also saw me using a radio frequency detector, also known as electrosmog detector, that people use to, make sure that their Wi-Fi router or cell phone isn't emitting too much radiation where they sleep, things like that. You've seen some concern about maybe that there's some negative effects from just being around too much electrosmog.
5G.
The jury is still out if it's a bad thing, but I turn my router off at night just because I don't know, maybe just in case.
You should.
We learn it's not good. But yeah, so I put my cell phone in aircraft mode when it's in my pocket, stuff like this.
Mhm.
That radio frequency meter detects that. And in the show, I was out there seeing if we could find any radio frequency being emitted by the circle. Now, in that circle, we didn't get any emissions, but the meter started acting weird. It was like in a slow down. It was blinking slowly. It never does that. So that was a kind of weird effect. And the third meter you saw me using there was an electromagnetic meter, which people often use. Again, it's not a radio frequency. It's coming from your electrical wiring, magnetic electrical field directly. And I use those in my home and places I'm at to make sure that I'm not sleeping right next to a large electrical wire, a 120 volt circuit, stuff like that. It detects those sorts of things. And, some people feel better if they're in an area like their bedroom or something is low on the EMF scale. So I was using that to see if there was anything in the formation.
Well, Doctor, we do our monthly CE5s out here. We've been doing it for almost 3 years on a regular basis. It would be interesting, and I would invite you. I'm inviting you if you do feel like coming down sometime and taking some electromagnetic measurements there. We actually do cut circles around where we do the CE5 meditation. And we've had so many instances of contact out there that it would be nice to see if there's any electrosmog or any kind of electrodiagnostic patterns that might exist. 2 months ago, we actually had an orange orb. We didn't see it, but it came up on the videotape, and it was around the barn for about an hour and a half. It appeared like it was observing us. And we've had so many different contact experiences out there. It'd be interesting to see if there was any kind of electromagnetic residue that was part of it that would be abnormally or normally shouldn't be there.
I'm glad you brought that up because that is a really strongly related phenomena, is contact with these unexplained orbs and objects and UFOs and things like that. I've gone out on CE5, sessions with, Dr. Stephen Greer and so forth. We've seen things. I've seen them with him, unmistakable, really odd lights in the sky that just were different and weird compared to what we normally see. So I know that CE5 contact protocol can work. And what you're describing is some of this really hard to explain electromagnetic anomalies that people get when they have contact experiences. We've heard of the car stalling, right?
Right. Yeah.
People having missing time. What's the first thing that happens before they have the missing time? The car stall.
Right.
I have this in my own book, Black Swan Ghosts. I have my own witnesses. I encountered some of these people. I wrote a book about it, and one of the Joy French in there is, the car stall. Radio goes off when the bright light appears over the car, and then they lose a lot of time. So these I believe Ford Motor Company even wrote a paper about it in the 70s about why UFOs could be doing this. But this sort of electromagnetic anomalies goes with the territory of UFOs, and it also seems to go with the territory of crop circles. And then you start to wonder, are there some of the same fundamental, scientific principles at work across these phenomena? So that's a good question. You bring those meters up, see if anything's happening when you're getting the contact.
Well, Ford will do anything not to honor a warranty claim, but but anyway, yeah. And I have the book right here. This is the Black Swan Ghost for those watching on Facebook and YouTube. This is available on Amazon. But order it directly from Dr. Hein. If you go to his site, Simeon Hein, SIMEONHEIN, .com, I believe that is. And you have another one, mountbaldy.com. That's another one you said. I always wondered, is that a location or an invitation?
It is actually a location. No, we did. We named that after the mountain outside of Santa Fe.
Right.
There is a Mount Baldy in every state.
There is?
Yes. And there's a famous one outside of LA. But this one was named after the Mount Baldy in Santa Fe, north of Santa Fe.
Okay.
Where, there was UFO activity and some remote viewing. We thought maybe there was some sort of ET base there and stuff. This is a long time ago. I just sort of named it after that mountain. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, those are the two websites.
Thanks for mentioning the book.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a great read. And you actually have a couple other books too. And I'm going to send away for the Planetary Intelligence. I love the way this title goes. Right. 101 Easy Steps to Energy, Well-Being, and Natural Insight. So
right.
It sounds like a 101.
Yeah, well, see, here's the thing, Lou. I mean, people always ask me, what can I do to improve my remote viewing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? What is there a machine I could buy?
Right.
I could turn it on and be instantly good. And the thing is, you're the machine.
Right.
You just need to be present with yourself. Totally present. That makes you a better remote viewer, is if you're really in the present.
Yes.
And if you're connected to your surroundings. So that book kind of came out of that. And it was just the theme there is, how do we become more aware of what we already have all around us? Not the things that we accumulate every day, but just the things that are all around us in our environment, to be more aware and self-conscious and in a good way of our connection to our environment. That's why I wrote that book, because people wanted to know, how can I be better at this? And you become better by being more sensitive and empathic to the people around you, to your environment, not just tuning things out. Like we have so much of this electronic media we have, really, you've seen people who are just buried in their cell phones, and we're starting to really tune things out because we want to focus on our channels and stuff. It's not inherently wrong, but it causes us to be a little sort of semi-autistic, if you know what I mean.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I wrote this book to go the other way. Yeah.
No. Yeah, and that's what it is. The noise, the white noise saturation that we go through, all these different magnetic fields that we pass through every day. A couple of weeks ago, I was at some people's house, and they had 2 TVs going. They had 3 computers lit up. Everybody had a cell phone. And I'm telling you, man, I had this like chaotic feeling inside of myself. Right. I got to get out of here, man. I mean, I literally... I
had that feeling driving through Clearwater today, trying to get here. There's just too many people. There's too much input going on, and you need to segregate yourself out in order to do this. I learned how to do this from Hollis Polk, and I'm sure you know Hollis, and Nancy Dutetra taught me as well. Nancy gave up. She said, Mike, you just need to stick with CE5. But when I was with Hollis on an earlier occasion, the exercise she had us do, and you might want to comment on this, is we had 40 people in the middle of a gymnasium, and she brought in a black bag with something in it, and she said, okay, I want you to all calm down. We'll take 6 or 7 minutes and just meditate. And then what I want you to do is tell me what's in the bag. And then we went around the room after the 6 or 7 minutes, and people did the best they could to tell what was in the bag. And this was the first time I tried this. And what I did was I couldn't really tell what was in the bag, but I drew a face of a man, and I drew a circle in front of the face, and that's all I got. And I said, and she goes, Mike, what did you get? And I said, I don't know. I have a face of a man, and there's a circle in front of his face. And it wasn't until the end of the exercise that she pulls a man's diving mask out from the black bag. But all I could get was this really subtle indication of what was in there, but I really couldn't tell exactly what it was. Is that typical of somebody who just starts trying to engage this phenomenon as a remote viewer?
Right, that's exactly right. What RV shows you are little glimpses and fragments of the target. You actually can't name it. If someone says to you, tell me what's in the bag, you don't know, because that's a conscious mind question. But you can describe it. And you get these fragmentary, fleeting images, and they're very transient, and then they go away. That's accurate RV information. And what's fun about it is it's pretty subtle, and it's not the way we're used to perceiving things. As you were mentioning a few minutes ago, we have all this technological noise around us right now, information technology and all these signals. And you can go into people's homes and 2 TVs are going, and people on cell phones like, what's going on? See, the psychic signal is pretty subtle, and it's not loud,
Right.
like cell phones and TVs. It's not a loud signal, and this is why training can help.
Right.
Signal is already there. Everyone's already a natural viewer, but we haven't been trained to pay attention to it because it comes from a part of our awareness which is very subtle and not very loud. So when you do this type of training, you learn to pay attention to the subtler signals. Those tend to be more accurate.
And on the flip side of this,
the loud ones tend to be inaccurate and mental noise. And RV is about separating the signal from the noise.
The flip side of this too is the CTS, the sequencing that we project out with our consciousness to make contact with ET and non-human intelligences. It seems like the remote viewing is what we get by letting the information in, and by sequencing out is how we get our information out, and that's how contact occurs.
Right. And Greer calls that remote vectoring.
Okay.
Which is you've transmitted your location and intention to another party who has agreed to meet with you, some pilot somewhere of some ship or something. So yeah, you're bringing up a good point.
That's great.
When we're doing viewing, we're just sort of passively receiving the information. We may feel like we're at the target site. The monitor or the instructor can ask you to move around the target site, and it might actually feel like you're there, but you're not really there.
Right.
You're just getting the information, and your conscious mind is sort of assembling it into a coherent picture, like it's doing right now with the room around you. All that's coming in through little bits of stream. This is the mystery of consciousness, by the way, guys. I mean, perception. It seems so seamless, right?
Sure.
But we know from physiological studies that the eye is not a camera. It is not a camera. It's sending black and white images, grayscale, different types of color, texture. There's all these different sensors in there that do different things. And somehow your brain miraculously turns it into this coherent image. So you could imagine that your eyes are like cameras, but they're not. That
Dr.
same
Hein.
process that brain uses is what we do in RV. It creates the same sort of image and it feels real. Yes.
Dr. Hein, this is fascinating. We're at the top of the hour and we've got to take a news break. Do you want to stick around for the second half?
Please do.
Oh, sure. I'll be right here.
I want to ask you about the time-space membrane.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the imho.love show with special guest Dr. Simeon Hein. Michael, myself, and Kathy will be back right after the news break. Stick around.
WTAN, Clearwater.
FM 106.1.
WDCF, Dade City.
FM 102.3.
WZHR, Zephyr Hills.
FM 104.3.
Listen.
President Trump signed 2 bills aimed at supporting human rights and pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong. Correspondent Caitlin Collins reports Trump had expressed some concerns about signing the bills, as it may complicate efforts to work out a trade deal with China.
The president is signing this bill, even though there were questions of whether or not he was going to, but he really didn't have an option here, because if the president had vetoed this, it likely was going to be able to have that 2/3 of majority in Congress to override the president's veto, because it was just that bipartisan.
2 massive explosions 13 hours apart tore through a Texas chemical plant, with the initial blast injuring 3 workers. Correspondent Ed Levendera says the blasts blew out windows and doors of nearby homes and prompted a mandatory evacuation of a 4-mile radius from the TPC Group plant east of Houston.
Company officials say that right now they are simply just trying to contain the fire, to keep it spreading throughout the facility, igniting more explosions, and that they are simply waiting for these fires to extinguish themselves.
There are still concerns over high winds for tomorrow's Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade, but this afternoon the giant helium balloon characters were inflated near New York's Museum of Natural History. Macy's executive parade producer, Susan Truchero, says some old favorites are back this year.
We have Snoopy coming back as astronaut Snoopy. This is the 8th version of Snoopy in this year's parade. So we are so excited to have Snoopy return and celebrate the landing of the moon, 50 years this year. And then we have Smokey Bear. Smokey Bear's coming back 75th anniversary. Really excited to have Smokey join us again.
William Ruckelshaus, President Richard Nixon's Deputy Attorney General, who refused an order to fire the special prosecutor investigating the Watergate break-in, has died. Ruckelshaus, widely promoted as Mr. Clean, was 87. I'm Barbara Cusack.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you. Printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-501-3689 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-501-3689 for your free author submission kit. Again, 800-501-3689.
Dell has announced their biggest Black Friday ever with some of the lowest prices of the year, offering you up to 50% off top brand electronics like Samsung TVs. You'll also get massive deals on Dell and Alienware computers with Intel Core processors, plus free shipping on everything. For the gamer, streamer, or student, Dell has you covered. Just call 800-BUY-DELL or go to Dell.com/Black Friday. That's 800-BUY-DELL.
If you would like to become a wholesale buyer of the premium quality longevity product that you hear about right here on the Tan Talk Radio Network for personal service, you can pick up the phone right now and call Lola at 727-441-3311. Again, that's Lola at 727-441-3311. Or for even faster service, log on to tantalkhealth.com. That's tantalkhealth.com. Here's to your health and longevity.
There's only one place on the radio where golfers like you can turn for the best tips, interviews, product reviews, local tournaments, and everything golf talk. The Golf Show, guys.
Hey, join the Golf Show, guys, every Wednesday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's not just funny, it's informative, it's celebrities, and it's a lot of applause. It's the Golf Show, guys, Wednesday mornings from 9 to 10 a.m. right here on the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Hey, everybody, this is Pastor Marcia McAllister from Beacon of Hope Ministries. We want you to join us on Sunday afternoons at 3 o'clock on this radio station for our 2-hour show, talking to you about the Word of God, giving you great contemporary music, some lively chat, and just some food for thought. You'll be encouraged to know how very much God loves you and how He has a plan for your life. Join us this coming Sunday at 3 o'clock on Living the Good Life.
Hello there, Tampa Bay. This is former NFL and college football coach Jimmy Johnson. Listen to the Kelly Show every Monday starting at 5 p.m. They can sure use the attention.
And this is former Major League Baseball player, Hall of Famer Wade Boggs. I also hope you listen to the Kelly Show every Monday starting at 5 p.m. They can darn sure use the money.
Hi there. This is marine wildlife artist and conservationist Dr. Guy Harvey. Please listen to the Kelly Show every Monday starting at 5 p.m. They need to feel worthy.
I don't think it's a truck at all. I think we just found a transformer.
This is Optimus Primer Button, leader of the auto part junkies. And I'm calling on all auto parts junkies to listen to nostalgic radio and cars every Tuesday at 7 p.m. here on Tan Talk. This is Optimus Primer Button. If you don't tune in, it will be the end of the world.
Are you looking for a little fun with your politics? Then why not give a listen to Freedom Works, the Paul Malloy Show, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on the Tan Talk Radio Network. Nothing is sacred as we look at what's going on in the world of politics, both at the national and the local level. And we do so with political experts from around the country and also right here in Tampa Bay. So join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 10 to 11 a.m. on Tan Talk Radio, sponsored in part by Tampa Bay's best barber, Andrew's Master Barbershop in the Overcash Plaza in Dunedin.
Tampa Bay's Tan Talk. Entertaining and informative radio for the Sunshine State.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the imho.love show. I'm Lou Angelwolf here with Michael Murburg and Kathy McGuire. We have our special guest this week. This is a fascinating conversation. We're talking about crop circles and resonant viewing. Remote viewing is a more popular term. You might know what that is. We've got on the line with us Dr. Simeon Hein, who's an author and an adventurer, and he's got some fascinating stuff going on. And thanks for hanging with us there over the break, Sim. That's very nice.
Oh, sure. Glad to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. And Michael has a really intriguing question for you. But I just, on the crop circle topic, okay, the detail that these crop circles are in, especially the one that has like the DNA code or the DNA thread that goes through.
Yeah.
I really find it hard to believe that a bunch of guys with boards and ropes and all these other things can create such an intricate design on the ground and have it look absolutely meticulous from the sky. Most people can't back up a boat trailer, nevertheless, make these incredible formations out there in these fields.
Right. It does seem unbelievable. And for the vast majority of them, I really can't say. I mean, I wasn't there when they're made.
Right.
We did find that some of the groups we met were very good when they were out there at night, and they even had their experiences while making them. Right.
Okay.
I've heard of triangular craft, small triangular craft, not huge ones, but triangular craft coming over the formations while they're making them. They've seen balls of light out there while they're making them. Have had their own space-time anomalies. So I guess my main point is, regardless of whatever the origin is, whether you think it's people or some people think it's all people and some people think it's all ET, I'm kind of more in the middle. I think it's some of both.
Okay.
Keep in mind, in Black Swan Ghost, I have a witness in there, Louise Voves, that saw a flying disc picking huckleberries with her brother in the 1970s near Usk, Washington. And she told me that craft came very low to the ground as it left and sped up, and it flattened the plant as it left, flat as a pancake.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she said, 90 degrees. So there is an eyewitness that I personally knew. She's deceased now. You watch her. You can go to my blackswanghost.com website and watch my video interview with her for free. I put the interviews up of some of those witnesses, and she talks about this. So we know that UFOs are related to flattening of crops sometimes.
Okay.
Now, whatever the percentage is, I don't know, but I do think the precision of it, once it's there in and of itself, creates like a crystalline structure that has real quantum effects. And that's partly what we're seeing going on with the weird electromagnetics, is you've got these very esoteric quantum properties that you don't find in ordinary matter just because there's, as you said, so precisely formed.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, I mean, I tend to have this, idea, I guess, through, popular grooming that like our extraterrestrial friends are up there with like a little beam thing they got, like, hey, let's do a cool design, their technology is so far ahead of ours, but I'm sure we could come up with something like that with a, with a force and like a radiation or a magnetism that would knock the field down and make these shapes. That's what I always pictured, was because of the intricacy. And of course, many of these have a universal code. They mean things. They're symbols from, the Anunnaki forward. So, just those ancient logos,
Well, no, those symbols have a lot of meaning. Some of them seem to relate to archetypal symbols, and some, hard to say what they are, but they still look really impressive. I mean, I think it's tempting to want to project onto ETs some of our own abilities that we don't quite recognize yet. To learn that RV was real was not something I would have believed before 1996. I came out of academic training, graduate school, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you are not trained to believe in these sorts of things. So one way to process it is to imagine that somebody more advanced than us can do it. And if you had asked me in 1994, when I had just finished graduate school, do you think it's possible that humans have innate telepathy? It's very accurate. I would have said no, but I could have imagined that they're special people, natural psychics, perhaps, that could do it. But I didn't realize that everybody could do it. And it's the same way with crop circles. We probably have abilities we don't recognize. And because we can't accept our own powers, we project them onto other species or advanced versions of ourselves. Now, I'm not saying that ETs don't have anything to do with this. I'm just saying that with the whole phenomenon, this whole topic, and you guys were at the conference in Laughlin, right?
Yes.
It's sometimes easier to imagine that there are people more advanced than us that can do things that we can't, just because we have the ability, but we haven't gotten in touch with it yet, So that's just one sort of comment about it. And that's sort of why we imagine these very advanced shapes. And again, we brought this up on the In Search of episode, and Zach Quinto went over it, I thought, very eloquently, which is, we do know that sound patterns create shapes in sand and in lycopodium dust, stuff like this that's lightweight. And Ernst Kolodny, a German physicist musician, discovered this in the 18th century. And he went around Europe showing people these patterns. And it's the frequency which creates the shapes. And we have wondered for a long time, were those crop circles, some of them created with sound? Because they are exact replicas of cymatic shapes, some of them.
Wow.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to deal with...
It's a good question. Yeah.
It doesn't have to deal with matter at all. It all has to deal with energy. And that's what creates the patterns. It's not the mass that's creating it. It's whatever source of the energy.
Right. There's a frequency. And is the crop circle generating a frequency once the shape is there? Because that's the inverse side of cymatics, is that shapes create a frequency. You can't necessarily hear it, but you can kind of feel it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you put it that way, because we're talking about the ebb and flow and the give and take of both remote viewing, remote vectoring, and this cymatics of sound, light, and energy going both ways as well. So we're literally talking about the same modality, but just different expressions of it.
Right. And right before the break, you were talking about this space-time membrane.
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. That I watched your lecture there, and that was one of my notes. Is like, if you ever meet this guy, ask him about the space-time membrane. So you're fulfilling my my synchronicity at this point. So please.
Which lecture are you talking about? The space-time membrane lecture?
Well, it was the one I was at the conference, and after I lectured, I got involved with Dr. Burke for a bit. So I only caught the last half of your lecture, but I was fascinated by it, and I looked at my notes and I found my reference to it. So that's why I'm asking.
There's a lot of talk in physics right now about space-time, membranes, parallel realities. There's a new book about it by Sean Carroll called Something Deeply Hidden.
Something Deeply Hidden?
Yeah, and he's a mainstream physicist from Caltech, Sean Carroll. I'm just going through this book. I'm towards the end of it. It's I really love it. It's Something Deeply Hidden, Quantum Worlds and the Emergence of Space-Time, because that's the subtitle, Quantum Worlds and the Emergence of Space-Time, just like you're talking about space-time membrane. He argues that the simplest interpretation of modern physics is many worlds. The many worlds of Hugh Everett, the guy that created it in the 1950s as a graduate student at Princeton University. And it was suppressed. It was not popular. It went against the prevailing views of the time of Copenhagen interpretation quantum physics, that there are many worlds, but they collapse into one, which you're in, and the other ones disappear, called the disappearing world theory. And Everett said, wait a minute, there's no logic behind that. The Schrodinger wave equation, it's like cymatic, kind of a complex version of cymatic. That's what Schrodinger was working with, the same thing you saw on those metal plates. Everett said that equation is suggesting many worlds, just like you saw the plates change with the frequency.
Yes.
Bend. Everett said those are all real universes in a sense. You're only perceiving one at a time, but it's evolving into many versions of that. Just because you're only perceiving one sliver of it doesn't mean the other ones exist. And quantum mechanics had always said, you're only perceiving this one because the other one disappeared. And Everett said, where do they go? And they just said, don't ask that question. That's philosophy. They said, no. They said, this is metaphysics. You can't get a Ph.D. in metaphysics. You have to just shut up and calculate. And they go somewhere, don't ask where they go. And Everett said, no, they have to go somewhere. They can't cease to exist. That would violate the laws of physics. They exist. Now, Everett didn't believe they interacted again. I have a slightly different view, and some other physicists have a different view of Everett's many worlds, that they do interact a bit. But the main point is that Sean Carroll's book says to us that the simplest interpretation of quantum mechanics as we know it is there is no wave collapse, all the worlds exist. What you and I are perceiving is one sliver of space-time. Right. And that's what I believe, guys, is that the other ones exist, and sometimes you interact with them, and in those other worlds are all sorts of other possibilities. You know, and this is where this weirdness comes from, paranormal phenomena, because it's hard to explain. They do pop in from these other realities. And that's what I'm talking about with space-time. If you want to know how that applies to RV really quickly, when you do RV, like you were there, Lou, at the some of the session I did it.
Yeah, I was there for that one.
You know, you have this, so you have this target. In that case, the target was a Buddhist temple. And I'm going to show you this target picture in 15 minutes from now. The view I'm giving you now of many worlds would say, in a parallel reality right now, there's a version of you that already saw the target feedback. And that's why you're able to describe it now, because it bled through from the so-called future back to the version of you now that's sitting in the lecture with Simeon with a pen in your hand and a piece of paper.
Wow.
And that's why it's very faint, because it's coming from a parallel reality that we call the future, but it's happening now. That's why you can get the information. And that would be one explanation of why RV works. It's not the only one. I'm just suggesting to folks that you think about it this way to see if it's useful or not. And that's where the space-time stuff comes in.
Well, it certainly,
that is how it comes in.
Yeah, it certainly gives you a very wide range of reception If there's things already happening ahead of you, and what you have to do is, to me, and the same thing that happens at our Skywatches, our CE5 meetups, the more clear you can get your meditative state, the less vibration, the less earthly vibration that you're dealing with, the more clear your conduit to spirit world, to higher frequencies. We seem to have a very we have a stronger event if you got people that are really dialed in, and you know, we have a wonderful time out there, and a lot of times there's a lot of socializing, which kind of, it's fun and it's good and it's great to catch up with beautiful people, but what it does is human conversation keeps the vibrational levels lower than as if we were all in a effort-filled meditative state where we're trying to be as clear, conscious as we can conjure here as a group, and then reach out, because obviously our star family, they have a variety of frequencies and vibrations that aren't quite available to us yet, but I think we can tap in at certain times.
Right. It's very well said.
Okay. Well, good.
Well,
it's very well said. It's called opening the aperture. Right?
Opening the aperture.
Yeah.
Of our perception. Normally, it is so narrow, our perception. It's nothing wrong with us. It's how nature built it normally, because for survival value, nature wants you focusing on what's in front of you and around you every moment, because we used to live in dangerous circumstances where there could be saber-toothed tigers and predators, right?
We still do.
You got to be paying attention. Yeah, still do. So you got to be paying attention to your surroundings. But that doesn't mean that's all that is there. It just means our physical bodysuit is tuned into our physical surroundings, because that's how we're made. But there are other levels of perception. It may not be socially popular to go to those other levels of perception. Some societies, I think ours, downplays it a little bit. If you start saying you're seeing things and talking to deceased relatives in your sleep at night, a lot of people have had that. I was just talking to my mom right before the show, and she was telling me her brother died, younger brother died, 84, 85, a couple weeks ago, and she had this beautiful vision of his face as she woke up. An astounding vision that made her feel better about the whole situation, right? Maybe people have had that or had it happen yourself.
Sure.
I believe that is actually real information coming from a parallel reality where that individual is alive now. And I've had that experience myself. That's what I'm talking about, is this opening the aperture. And when you begin to play with this a little bit, yes, you can use it to contact extraterrestrials, whatever you want to do with it. I know it's not socially popular always. People make fun of it. But if you ask people about these experiences, you'll find a lot of people have had these experiences, Lou. You and I know it. You talk to people tell me all sorts of things all the time about experiences they've had. It is something that a lot of people have had. And Ray Hernandez and the Free Organization, now I believe called the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute, of which I'm a kind of an advisor for. It was founded by Edgar Mitchell initially.
Yes.
They have this
I actually published in the book. So, but what you're talking about is there's massive crossover in all these different contact modalities. The dream state, people seeing ghosts. I have a theory that actually, to the extent that time doesn't exist, time is actually a form of material that expands, contracts, can be broken, and can be connected and reconnected at will. So I see time differently, and I'm sorry to interject that, but I'm going to ask you about that next time we meet. I'd like you to think about that a little bit. But what I want to ask you is, where are you speaking next? I need to get you some time in so that the people here that are looking at this will be able to, to hear you lecture, which I did, and I thought you were phenomenal and highly recommended. And I'd like to know where you're speaking within the next year so people can follow you and actually learn.
Oh, well, thanks a lot. And by the way, I see time the way you do, too. I don't think it has fundamental existence as much as it's the way our consciousness assembles things. But that's just the way I look at it. Maybe you look at it like that, too.
Mm-hmm.
It is much more fluid and flexible than I think it appears to be.
Yes.
And that's what makes everything so much fun. It's actually much more fluid. It's not so linear. I mean, you can treat it in a linear way, but it doesn't mean it has to be that way. So, yeah.
Well,
Thanks for asking.
We constantly reflect on our cyclical time, the way things happen. It seems a lot more cyclical than it does linear, because if it was linear, you would leave that behind and never see it again.
Right.
But as energies cycle in our life, people pop up all again.
They pop up, and I've thought about that too. And it seems sort of circular. All I'm saying to folks is we need to question the version of reality we've been taught. I'm not saying I have the solution to this, that I know everything. I just know it can't be complete what we were taught in school. We wouldn't have all these phenomena around that we can document scientifically.
True story.
The model that we were taught has to be very incomplete. There's just more going on. And I have, as I explained my version of this, the multiverse, whatever works for you. It's bigger than we were taught, or you wouldn't have these. And it's time to stop denigrating people that have these experiences and start encouraging them to share it and not feel bad about it, that they're going to be ridiculed, right? Because they're sharing these so-called weird experiences. Maybe they're not weird after all, they're normal. In a multiverse, these are normal experiences, and people shouldn't feel afraid to share it because, I mean, it's what they're experiencing. And it's fun to share with other people things that you've experienced so we can kind of compare notes, right? Figure out where we are, what's going on here. But thanks for asking. I just got invited to speak at Contact in the Desert, that UFO conference in Joshua Tree. I think it's at the end of May or June.
Great.
Next year.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that'll be fabulous. We want to make
I'm
that
looking
one.
forward to that. Yeah.
That's a big one.
You want to make that one, Michael?
I'll take a look. I'd like to make it.
That'd be great. And also, too, you have an upcoming trip to Stonehenge for a small group of people. Is that already full?
No, I'm still putting that together. We're going to do another crop circle tour next year in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still looking at the time. It's going to be June or July, something like that.
Okay.
You can go to cropcircletours.com. It's another one of my sites where I have the crop circle tour. And because we go there because it's fun for people to have these experiences themselves in the crop circles and experience it for themselves. So that's why we go. But it's a beautiful ancient country with a lot of great stone circles and a lot of magical experiences.
That's good. Yeah, that's all fascinating stuff. And I got to just, because the show is sponsored by disabilityattorney.net. That's Michael's law practice. That's disabilityattorney.net. I saw on one of the tabs on your website, you have etlaw.org.
Right.
And I just read the brief little one-page thing you had up there that we as American citizens should be free and open to communicate with our extraterrestrial friends or star family, however you want to put it. And I thought that was interesting because that, I don't know how long ago you put that together, but that is really, I mean, as far as disclosure goes, that's going to be a big element. Right.
What is the legal status of extraterrestrials? You know, is it legal to communicate with extraterrestrials? I mean, what's the law? What is the law? Do we even have any law that covers it? To communicate with them, to meet with them? I mean, is it legal to, because there was a law at the time, for a while in the 60s, at the end of the 60s, that's what this was about, called the Extraterrestrial Contact Law, something like that, that prohibited extraterrestrial contact.
Wow.
And at the time, the agency that created it, it wasn't like ordinary law. It was a special type of law that agencies can pass, that NASA had passed this law allegedly because of the astronauts. But it was called the extraterrestrial exposure law. That's what it was. And it made it illegal, I think, from 68. It made it illegal to contact extraterrestrials.
Well,
it's no longer.
And it's never really been dealt with. It's
no longer in effect. It's a dead letter.
I mean, right.
It's a dead letter. Okay. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've had the pleasure of having Dr. Simeon Hein on the show. For those of you who tuned in late, the show is always archived on imho.love on YouTube. We're on BitChute, Facebook Live, YouTube Live. Like I said before, if you can't find us, you're not looking hard enough. Dr. Hein, thank you so much for your time and your input. It's just been fantastic having you on.
Hey, thanks. I really enjoyed it, guys, and let's do it again soon.
Hey, absolutely. I'll take that up. Michael, that was great.
Stay warm, Doc. It's getting cold up there.
Yeah. And Kathy, thank you so much for running the board.
Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the imho.love show. I'm Lou Angelwolf on behalf of Michael Murburg and Kathy McGuire and Bob the Board Op. Happy Thanksgiving. We have much to be grateful for. And like we tell you all the time, use your head, but trust your gut.
Whether you're at home, in the car, or at the office, the music of your life keeps you company all day long on the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Unforgettable.